I've talked about speed dueling a few times on this channel now. We've talked about it on live streams and obviously did an entire video talking about everything we know about speed dueling. And I've been waiting to talk about it because when it was announced at YCS Pasadena that they would actually be having speed duel side events, I really wanted to just actually get my hands on the cards and play the format myself. And that's what I did. So in today's video, I'm going to give you my honest feedback on speed dueling. If you don't want to watch the entire video, you're not super interested in speed dueling, I would stick around because honestly, the general assumption that I have about this game is that it's going to be a fun, unique side event for Yu-Gi-Oh! Going forward. And overall, I was sort of, my expectations weren't met exactly, they were exceeded because I honestly had very low expectations heading into the speed dueling side event. I did not think these cards were that interesting. I did not think the skills were that interesting, but after playing it, my mind has actually changed. I think that speed dueling, for the most part, is feels like what Duel Links was supposed to be in terms of like how fast and how slow the format is. I think Duel Links right now is getting closer and closer, not to what the TCG looks like, but to what the TCG feels like in terms that it's really fast. It feels like it's a die roll format, where in speed dueling, I don't think that's the case. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about what speed dueling was like at YCS Pasadena, what are some of the best skills and the best cards, and also some of the things that I didn't get a chance to get my hands on. There's just a lot of cool stuff that I want to talk about. So let me get myself out of the way here. So this is the website that Konami posted. They posted a couple, or not the website, this is the article Konami's posted on their website. Get ready for speed dueling. This was posted over this past weekend, and they showed some things that I didn't get a chance to actually use. So they show some ultra rare cards that you get when you buy the starter decks for speed dueling. If you don't know, just a quick summary, speed dueling format is Duel Links format, but in a physical TCG way. So it's like the halfway point between Duel Links and the actual TCG cards, the real game. The difference is that these cards are like Duel Links was like in 2017, not 2018. So it's very slow, very not very complicated cards that you're seeing here if you've seen the discussion where I look at the decks. Anyway, these cards were not cards that we got to play with. They're ultra rares. They're released with the starter decks. You get a chance of, you get like when you buy three starter decks, you get a chance to pull any of these, I believe, any three of them. In terms of like the actual card quality of these cards, I think that the best ones are Amazon's Village, Champions Vigilance, and Shard of Greed. This format is extremely slow, so cards like Shard of Greed actually will have some power to them. There's also not, at least with these starter decks, like no real back row removal besides Stamping Destruction and other specific cards like that. Like Amazon's Sage technically destroys back row, but in general I think Shard of Greed is probably pretty good. Amazon's Village is probably way too strong, at least what I think. I'm pretty sure the Amazoness/Harpy deck is the best one. It also has what I think is the best skill, but by far, just objectively, it's the most consistent strategy with the most like consistently powerful cards. Almost all the cards in the deck are actually playable, unlike a lot of these starter decks where they have just a bunch of normal monsters in them. And Champion's Vigilance is probably going to be pretty good. I don't know, like the Blue Eyes deck is like probably the sackiest deck out there, if not the second best deck to the Amazon deck. It's not as consistent, but it definitely has like a crazy OTK that I'll talk about. Overall though, it's cool, and I think that if you look at this deck, and I'm sorry that this image isn't that high quality, hopefully you guys know what most of these cards are. They're just like Amazoness and Harpy cards. This is just what, there's like no good pictures of these decks yet, but this is what we're looking at right now. The best card that I would say that like isn't good in Duel Links but is good in this format that's in this deck is Amazon's Heirloom. One of the things that you can notice, and I'll post a link to this original article in the description below, you can look at all 6 decks right here. There are no defensive traps. I mean, there's like the Windstorm card, and that's like okay, that's only in this deck. And then there's like Golden Apples. I don't know if you really count that as a defensive card. I really don't. Other than that though, you're left with like Kunai with Chain and Amazoness Archers, which are both extremely specific and don't actually cover like great like gaps of attack points. Not a lot of monster removal, so Amazoness Heirloom is really powerful in this format. I think if it just comes out to like just being the starter decks, I'm not sure how soon the pack is being released. I think Heirloom will be like a staple card as like a 2 of in any Amazoness Harpy deck. The reason that this Amazoness Harpy deck is so good, by the way, is because of that skill, that the first skill I think that they revealed actually with My Valentine. And if you don't know what it is, I'll put it on the screen here, but basically you can draw 1 card immediately because you just have to have a Harpy and an Amazoness monster in your hand, and then eventually you can draw 2 cards because you have to just control an Amazoness and a Harpy monster. It's just crazy. That's a +3 in card advantage. Now this is a case where that skill would not be good in Duel Links because there's too many good cards. You wouldn't play an Amazoness/Harpy deck. Maybe you would, but you probably wouldn't because the Amazoness cards are so good by themselves. I know Harpy just got support, but in general, you probably wouldn't play a skill like that. But in this format where it's so slow, you actually can afford to play Amazoness and Harpy cards because neither archetype is fully fledged. I think just looking at these cards, you'd probably just play like 3 Harpy Lady 1, and then the rest of Amazoness cards, maybe a Bird Face, and then just use a skill to just get card advantage. But it's really powerful in this format. And overall, I noticed that it was very powerful when I was playing as well. What I didn't realize was so good, and what actually ended up being probably, like I said, not the best deck, but the sackiest deck, and a good deck with a ruling that they ended up changing, and I'll mention in a second, was the Blue Eyes strategy. Now, this deck, when you look at it, and when I looked at it, it didn't look that good, but I should have read one skill. And even if I think I read it, I wouldn't have understood how powerful it is until I realized that none of these decks have any defensive options. And basically, this deck has a skill called Dragon Caller, which you can see down here. And no, I can't zoom in on it because this picture is really low quality. I don't know why this picture is so whatever. So basically, if you normal summon Lord of D, or if you have Flute of Summoning Dragon in your hand, you get to add the other one to your hand, and that's just, it's way too good. It's way too powerful only because there's no good trap cards in this format. So what kept happening as well. So the other ruling that happened in round 1 and 2 of this format, or this little tournament, and the reason that I didn't make it to round 3, which was the finals, was there was this weird rule where it was like Duel Links, and basically you flipped a coin, you rolled a die, and then whoever won the coin toss, the die roll, they had to go first. You didn't get to choose to go first, second. You had to go first, second, or you had to go first. And the reason that sucks is because not only is this deck right here good OTK decks, that means in the case of my second round, I won the die roll, which meant that I had to go first, and then I got OTK'd, and then the other ruling, and they changed this right afterwards, which I'm kind of salty about that I didn't get to reap the benefits because I lost because of it. So I was forced to go first game 1, I get OTK'd, and then the other ruling that they had was that if you lost the first game, you had to go first the second game, and so then you just get OTK'd again. So what happened was I went first in game 1, I got OTK'd on turn 2, I went first in game 2, I got OTK'd on turn 2 again. There goes the entire round. So that very clearly benefited this deck in particular, because it just meant if you won the first game, you were just almost guaranteed to win the second game. This deck isn't that consistent now, because when you have three cards that you're trying to draw in a 20 card deck, you have about a 50% chance of seeing that one in your opening hand. Not to mention you technically have to also draw like a dragon monster to go with it, at least one to be preferable. You really want those big normal monsters though, like Blue Eyes or Luster Dragon, but in general, it was way too consistent in terms of how this tournament played out, just because of that going first rule that they made. After this, they reversed it though, but still, there were 2 Amazoness decks in the tournament. Me and my friend got to the finals, I got to the second round or whatever, and then 3 Blue Eyes decks, but only one of the Blue Eyes decks was actually very successful. The other one, my friend played in the semifinals, the second round or whatever, and he just bricked 2 games in a row. And the thing with these decks right now, at least in general, you want to go second with every deck. Even with this deck, even though it looks more like a control deck, you want to go second, because the tempo of being able to summon a monster first isn't actually worth it compared to the card advantage, because in this format there aren't cards that actually give you card advantage. So overall, what I want to see from this format going forward, I want to see defensive trap cards. That's what I want the most. I don't know, it's weird because I can see now why they added Wall Disruption to Duel Links, because it seems like, okay, nowadays we know Wall Disruption is a really good card, but they don't want to add Mere Force, they don't want to add Sacrifice Armor, they don't want to add Magic Cylinder. But Wall Disruption, which never saw any play in the TCG, not even a hint of play in the TCG, I can see why they thought it'd be good for Duel Links. And I can see I wish I had Wall Disruption in this game so I didn't just get OTK'd by Blue Eyes every single round. But is it too good? Probably, because now we know Wall Disruption is too powerful in formats like this where there aren't extra decks. So I'd like to see just more defensive traps. I'm not sure what the answer is, but some way to actually combat the Blue Eyes OTK that just dominated everyone, or at least one player did, because he got the benefit of going second 4 games in a row, because round 1 and round 2 just went second every single time. I'd like to see that. I don't think it's the best deck. I think this is the best deck because it's way more consistent. I always drew a playable hand. I always at least was able to resolve the first effect of the skill, not always the second effect. But I'd like to see some more variety. These other decks are just so, I'm not even going to go through them, but they're just not powerful. They're missing like that wow factor. Like the Joy one has like polymerization, which is kind of cool, but it doesn't actually, it's not consistent enough to go off. And then like the Gravekeeper's one is just terrible, and the Toon one is terrible as well. That one's probably the worst one of all these, because like you have so many bad cards in your deck. It's just crazy. If you choose the Toon World skill, you can actually like play your Toon cards. If you don't choose it, then if you don't draw Toon World, you're like screwed. It's just a mess. But overall, the best ones are Amazoness and Blue Eyes, and that's a lot of fun. I think this format, it's in a weird spot, right? Like, who's gonna buy, I'm just like thinking out loud here, who's going to buy these packs? Who's gonna buy these starter decks just to play in a side event? And then it's like, if they make this a main event at some event, who's really gonna play? Like, are people gonna freak out if they make like a regional qualifier or YCS with speed dueling? I think I would. So like, it has to stay a side event, I think. But then it's like, who's gonna actually spend the time to like train and practice and test for a side event? I don't really think anyone. It's in such a weird spot. I'm interested to see what Konami's going to do with it, because like I said, I was surprised at how much fun I had playing this. It's like what I wish Duel Links was. I mean, Duel Links is in a good spot right now, but in the last like 4 months, but I want to see what Konami will do with this, because clearly they've spent some time and effort into making these decks interesting and making new skills. If you remember, the 2 skills in these decks that I'm talking about that are powerful, neither of them is in Duel Links. And also, I'm not sure either of them would work in Duel Links. I don't think you'd actually find the decks where they could go into, because Duel Links at this point, like I said, it feels more like the TCG. These skills don't really fit into that context, so it's cool if they're doing that, but what more can they do? What can they add that's unique to this game, so it's not just a Duel Links clone at a lesser pace than actual Duel Links? It's interesting, and I'm interested to see where Konami's going to go with it. I'm just not so sure what that direction is right now, and I think this is why this got delayed so many times. Well, one time, but for like over a month it's getting pushed back. I think this is why. I think they're trying to figure out where this fits into Yu-Gi-Oh! But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed my honest review of speed dueling. I think it's fun. I think it could use some work though. Obviously, I just played with starter decks. I'm not even sure the contents of them are guaranteed. We'll have to see what it actually looks like when it comes out in a month. Anyway though, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.